Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Resource Insider podcast. We are here in our brand new Inventa Capital studio. We don't have any signs on the walls or anything like that yet, but it will be coming soon. Now, this is a podcast that has been about 2 years in the making. We're going to be sitting down, we are sitting down, with the CEO of a company that I invested in with Resource Insider members in 2018 at 5 cents. And we have worked with them and been engaged with them for 2 years as they've worked towards building an excellent portfolio of assets and are going public. So today I want to introduce you to Dustin Perry, the CEO of Kingfisher Resources. Dustin?
Hi, Jamie. We've been waiting 2 years or around 2 years to do this.
Well, I was thinking about that today. So when did we invest? It would have been spring 2018. Is that right?
Or 2019.
2019. That's
right.
Yeah, we were. It's 2021 now.
Yeah,
that's right.
As we were just talking.
I think we lost 2020, so I'm actually somewhat unsure of what year we were in at any given time.
Yeah, we first talked about this idea on a dance floor at PDAC, you mentioned.
That's right.
And then a couple months later, we did initial financing with your group as taking up about half of it. And since then, we've been off to the races.
If I remember correctly, we were at PDAC 2019. It was at the Royal York, and it was that big party they have where they give, like, there's the big hall with a free beer and everything.
Yeah.
And you got introduced to me by Francis McDonald.
Yep. The
VPX of Kenorland, another deal that we invested in. He's been on the podcast before. And Francis told me, you got to meet Dustin. He's got an awesome idea. This could be a real company, but he's just sort of getting started in terms of putting everything together and running the financing. And we met that night, and then the kind of conversation took off from there. And so when did we actually invest? Was it June of that year, thereabouts?
Yeah, I remember we got the financing going maybe mid-May, and it closed something like July 2nd, and then July 3rd we were off to the field.
Yeah. So before we get into any more of the backstory, let's talk about what Kingfisher is, what you guys are doing today, and then we can talk a little bit more about how it started, basically the theory behind it, and how you guys are planning on creating value for shareholders, and what we can expect out of you guys for the next year or so. So 30,000 feet, what is Kingfisher? What do you guys do?
Okay, Kingfisher is a BC-focused mineral exploration company. We've got a really strong technical foundation, but as we can get into, we've got some really strong shareholder support now. We own 100% of 3 district-scale properties where we're targeting world-class mineralization. We believe we can make a discovery or more than one on each of these projects, and that's the district-scale potential in them. The commodities we're focused on are primarily copper and gold, and we're targeting high-grade styles of mineralization, high-margin deposit styles that can last through any type of market. So VMS deposits for copper at our Extol project, and then orogenic high-grade gold mineralization at our Gold Range and Tibbert properties.
Okay, so you have gold assets, you've got copper assets. What is the primary focus today?
So the primary focus this summer is going to be our Gold Range project, where we are waiting a permit right now, but we are planning to do a 5,000 meter drill program as well as a large amount of regional work, drumming up new targets. So we've got a steady pipeline of really good drill targets. And then we will work Extol in the background, and we're going to take a little slower approach to that.
And Extol is the copper asset, correct?
Yes, that's what we started with, and it's equally as prospective. We just haven't got a drill target that could justify that kind of an impactful program on it quite yet.
So it's not as advanced.
No, there are a lot of we have got 3 really good drill targets on it that, for a lot of juniors, that could be, any one of those could be a flagship drill program. But we're after really big deposits, and what we've outlined at Gold Range represents by far the best target I've ever seen in my career. So
I want to take a step back and talk a little bit about when we got started, because there's kind of a funny story here. We invested in you guys at 5 cents. We were the first investors in. And so this is a big deal for me because it was the first deal at Resource Insider that we really came in as sort of the biggest shareholder as a group and the first money in. And, when you guys started, it was two guys with an idea and a company they just sort of set up on the internet, and away you go. So this was really exciting to be on the ground floor. And I remember, and you're gonna have to fill in some of the blanks here, that I was talking about this to another guest on a podcast, and I said something like, I love investing in Kingfisher and those guys because I know that Dustin is going to go out there and he's going to work his ass off and he's going to kill himself to get this thing done. And he'll do whatever it takes to make sure that this thing's a bloody success. So what were you doing at that point? And I think we can maybe tie that into the discovery of the Shiner Zone and what you were doing. I'll let you fill in the details.
Yeah, so there was three of us, Dave Loretto and myself. We're both geologists. We had a field assistant with us, and we were at our Extall property on a pretty shoestring budget to start. The three of us camped as close to the zones as possible, so that we're not paying for additional helicopter time. So we camped right on tops of mountains with some really bad weather a few times. But the Shiner Zone, it's called the Shiner Zone because my wood-handled rock hammer, I was swinging so hard the hammer broke, and the metal hammerhead came back, hit me in the face, and gave me a big black eye.
And didn't your tent fly off the cliff or something that day or around that time?
So yeah, at the Shiner Zone, it came off, and we were at another point in that program. We had. There's one spot where you actually get cell reception on the property. And we were listening to this podcast and heard you saying Dustin will literally kill himself to make this work. And it was just...
And that guy
shaking our heads.
But what happened? The wind picked your tent off and threw it off a cliff, right? Not the tent you were in, but the other
No,
tent.
the tent I was in. It didn't have a floor. And it was tethered to... it was tethered to some massive rocks that went with it. It was a good lesson. Well, I already knew this. You'd never put a camp with a big crew there. You'd have a helicopter, but we were doing things on the shoestring budget, and we made it work. We found a nice new VMS system with some pretty outstanding grades, over 3% copper, 2 grams gold. So we're not going to do that again, but it was worthwhile.
Yeah, things have changed a lot since then. And you guys, so when we invested in this initially, I was investing because I was bullish on copper, and I think we were a little early to the party, but we kind of saw what was probably coming down the road, and I kind of guessed, a year or two before copper sort of hit big, and it looks like we're on target for that. Copper's at 380 right now. But very astutely, I would say, you guys went out and acquired a gold asset just before gold really started taking its big run in early 2020. That's where you're focused today in terms of exploration. Can you tell us about acquiring Gold Range and then why you did that and what you're doing there?
Okay, so good things happen at PDAC. This also happened at PDAC. We were talking with our good friends at Kennerland. Mm-hmm. So just to back it up a little bit, Francis McDonald and I, we were really good buddies in university. We both went to UBC together, and we've actually done some prospecting on our own together through the years. Not anymore, obviously, because we're full-time at our companies. But we saw a couple maps for this project. Yeah. It was work done actually by Ross Beatty's first company, Equinox Resources, back in 87, 88. And there was a soil anomaly on this project, along with many other clues, like incredibly anomalous stream sediment samples across the property, up to close to 2 grams in streams. But there was this one soil anomaly that was just, it's the kind of thing that any geologist looks at it, just starts salivating. Really high grade gold, up to over 3 grams in soils, over a 3-kilometer strike length. But the big mystery here was there was no explanation for it. There was a few rock samples here and there, some pretty low level geological mapping potentially done by somebody fresh out of school, and some interpretations of the geology that didn't line up with the geologic environment. The geologic environment is actually very similar to the Braylorn, where the Braylorn deposit sits, which produced 4.2 million ounces at 17.7 grams per ton. We're talking like
4 million ounces of gold at 7. So this is a super high grade.
This is one of the highest grade mines ever in Canada.
And that's a couple hours north of Whistler, BC. Is that right?
Yeah. It's an area. Dave Loretto, our co-founder, him and I go there pretty much every fall to fill our freezer and get a deer. But this is on the same regional fault network, which is a major fault network in BC, the Yallacum Fault Network. and we're located about 140 kilometers to the northwest in an area that has not seen any historic drilling on our property, despite some hand mining. There's a few adits on the property from the 1930s, but no modern exploration, no drilling. And we saw this as a major opportunity, and we were able to pick up the property for very little.
So you and Francis picked it up, or how did, because you mentioned you were talking to Francis about this at PDAC 2020.
2020. No, we purchased it off Kennerland. We purchased it for 500,000 shares at 10 cents, $50,000 for 100%. There is a 2% royalty on it. And then we did a few other deals that amounted to under $100,000 total cost between staking
to build out the land package.
Staking,
yeah.
and I think we worked with, there was about 5 other vendors that we tied up all the ground.
Okay. For people who don't have any context for that, is that a good price?
Yeah. It's a steal of a deal.
So why is that? What do you think you got there? You've got this great soil anomaly. You've got a region that has all the right geology, doesn't have drilling, doesn't have real proper modern exploration. Why are you excited about it? What happened what did you guys do over the last summer? Because you spent months out there last summer. What's coming next?
Yeah, so our first objective was to get out on the property, and immediately we were impressed day one. And we had a small crew out there. There was 4 people, including our VPX scale Febo and our senior geologist Paul Stewart, who you know from childhood.
Yeah, I was Paul Stewart's summer camp counselor in Kingston, Ontario, which goes to show you what a small world it is. Yeah. But anyways, yeah.
Yeah, so we were out there. Dave Loretto and we were out there quite a bit too. I think I spent 45 days on the property this summer. And then obviously my dog Chilko was out there. And we hit the ground running. The goal was to confirm the soil anomaly and really tighten it up. It was fairly widely spaced before, and we went and did it on a 25-meter grid, which served 2 purposes. One, you're looking for vein deposits, so you really want that good, high-quality spatial information. But also, it means you're going to prospect this property on a 25-meter grid, so you're not going to miss anything.
So let's, most people listening to this aren't geologists. They've never worked in the field. What does that actually look like? It means someone's walking in a straight line, and every 25 meters, they're stopping, they're taking a sample of the soil, they're putting it into a little brown paper bag, they're labeling it, it all gets sent off to the lab for assay, right?
Yeah, exactly. And while that was being done, we had people out there prospecting as well. And then
what does that mean?
So prospecting means you're basically just bashing every single rock you can get.
And you're looking for?
You're looking for veins. You're looking for different styles of mineralization. There's many different styles of mineralization on this property, but they're all within the structural regime.
Okay, so with respect to the soil sampling, what is the purpose of this? So you're tightening that up. Is it to give you a really sort of, I guess, good picture of what's there on surface and where the soil anomalies or how that soil anomaly is actually formed? What are you trying to accomplish by this?
So in areas where you don't have 100% exposure, meaning just rock everywhere, like imagine Greenland or somewhere like that.
Right, so outcropping bedrock.
Exactly.
Right?
If you don't have that, you need a way to see through the soil cover. And these rocks, over time, they weather and they break down into soil. And on this project in particular, there's a pretty thin veneer of soil, actually. There's a lot of outcrop too, but you got to fill in the gaps. And that's what this soil survey is doing. It's showing us the metal signature, so the different types of elements we're seeing there, but is also telling us where's higher grade, where we should focus our prospecting efforts, and it's making sense of the system in the context of the structural geology and the mapping that we had done this summer. So it's really just giving us drill targets.
So this is okay. So it basically builds the map so that you can focus in with the drill and then explore undercover or undersurface rather.
Yeah. So exploration is all about layering different data sets on top of each other, and the more that check out and confirm what you're after, the better. And we did a really high resolution airborne magnetic survey this summer, as well as the mapping and prospecting, a lot of rock chip sampling, and a bit of backpack drilling, and all these layers check out.
And what is the MAG survey designed to show you?
The MAG survey will highlight, it can do many things, but in this situation, we're hoping to highlight structures, which control the fluid flow, which cause these veins, and also it outlines intrusives.
So when you kind of put these things together, are you looking for the soil survey to sort of line up over the mag survey, and then ideally they're both sort of indicating a target below that? Is that right? You're kind of layering them on top of each other?
Yeah, exactly. And then hopefully there's a nice fault going through there and some outcropping mineralization.
Okay. So you're out there this summer doing that. What are the results, or when do we find out the results?
So we're going to start releasing results in a couple weeks, and there should be a steady flow of news right up until May, when we're hoping to get back out on the ground.
And, what do you have planned for next summer? You mentioned a 5,000 meter drill program. What does that look like? Are there multiple targets you're following up? What can investors expect?
So we're in the permitting phase right now. That's moving pretty quickly. And we are planning to do, in that permit application, there's 20 drill pads. Mm-hmm. From those drill pads, you could drill multiple holes, but each of those drill pads was selected to test a target with a approximately 250 meter hole. Mineralization is outcropping at surface, so we don't have to drill really deep holes. The geography in that location is quite favorable for not having to drill big, expensive holes. Mm-hmm. So we're going to test the heart of this anomaly, and then we've got some peripheral targets that we're hoping to test with a RAB drill, a rotary air blast drill. That's a really lightweight little track-mounted drill that's low impact. It doesn't require water, and you can move it around really easily mm-hmm. in certain terrain.
So you can quickly get in there and test certain things and see if they're worth basically following up on with a proper diamond drill.
Exactly. Yeah. And we've also permitted diamond pads in those locations that we would use if it made sense. And then in addition to that, around the rest of the property, we're going to be doing basically exactly what we did last summer at Cloud Drifter on all these other targets. And it's a big property. So
Cloud Drifter is where you were focused last summer, right? And that's the most advanced target, I guess, area.
Yes.
So you're going to be doing this more, am I calling it right when I say like regional work or higher level work in the other targets?
Yeah, there's quite a few historic showings that just don't have a lot of work done on them. Like they don't have geophysics. They might not have the best geologic map, but there's grade in the historic sampling and some outstanding grades, historic grades up to 0.6 meters of 360 grams per ton.
So if we listen to Francis McDonald, who sold you this project, and he's been on this podcast before, according to his research, on average, you need to be drilling about 4,000 meters to make a discovery. That's what I think he found the average sort of drilling meterage for a significant discovery in the Abitibi region or in Quebec. You guys are doing 5,000 meters this summer. I mean, understanding that this is speculative and you don't know what's there until you drill it, what is it you're hoping to find? Like what would we see that this drill program in your mind would be considered a massive success?
I think we need to hit intercepts that are 100 gram meter intercepts, mm-hmm. and
so 100
ideally
gram
multiple
meters is length times grade, right?
Yeah.
So 10 grams per ton over 10 meters, as an example.
Exactly. That's the kind of mineralization we're targeting, and hopefully some higher grade hits within that, and maybe longer intervals too. Mm-hmm. What we're seeing on surface is a major vein system, and I think we've compared our soil data, for example, to some well-known deposits. We've had work digitized, and we'll have some maps coming out like that in the future, and it's very comparable to, say, the Barkerville trend or Coffee Creek. It's actually a better soil anomaly than the White Gold District. And then even another deposit it's a different style, but the Saddle discovery and the Saddle South, it's a pretty similar expression on surface in soils to that.
And so for people who have no context for these deposits, I mean, are these multi-million ounce gold deposits? What are you comparing it to?
Yeah, that's exactly what we're targeting. We're not in the business of chasing small deposits. We're looking for a world-class discovery, and I think we can do it at Gold Range.
So let's talk for a second or build some context about what kind of terrain this is. Like, I haven't been up there yet. I'm hoping we can get up there this summer for a site visit, but what's it look like? This is obviously mountainous. How are you getting in there? How are you getting work done?
Yeah, so it is quite mountainous. The Cloud Drifter area is actually mostly below tree line in forest with a lot of mountain pine beetle kill. So it's a pretty easy area to work. Some other parts of the property are quite steep and mountainous, and that's one of the reasons why we are prioritizing this area, because it's much more amenable to a mining scenario if we are to discover something. So the work is helicopter based, but we have a really big advantage here. There's a helicopter base that's been there since the early 80s. Incredibly experienced pilots. They've got a brand new machine that's the only one of its kind in Canada. And it's about a 6-minute flight from the helicopter base to where we're working, and we never pay minimums. So we're kind of in that sweet spot where it takes a helicopter to get in there right now.
Yeah.
So there wasn't the same level of prospecting as certain areas where, there's roads going through it. But it's not that expensive. This is going to be a lot cheaper to drill than many of the places in the Golden Triangle. And further to that, the weather's amazing. Last summer, I remember hearing about programs getting shut down before a hole was drilled because they were paying so much in standby costs. It was a really wet summer, and basically a winter last summer in the Golden Triangle. And we had, nobody wore a jacket until late September. And then early October, I remember being at 2,200 meters elevation in BC in October, and it was 24 degrees Celsius.
Are you guys near Mount Waddington at all?
So Mount Waddington's, give or take 60 so kilometers to the southwest.
Because I think Mount Waddington is the wettest place in North America. I think, or maybe it's in Canada in terms of rainfall, or one of them.
It could be. And
it's just interesting, these microclimates you sort of get in BC, right? Something 60 kilometers away can have a completely different weather pattern.
Well, that's why it's dry where we are, because all the precipitation falls out on these giant mountains. And then there's some glaciers on the property that have actually, some of them have disappeared since the last programs, so over a kilometer retreat. But there's pine trees, little pine trees at the toes of the glaciers versus subalpine firs like you'd see in northern BC. It's a really dry place. You got to have balm on your hands or they get cracked out.
Yeah. So Dustin, let's talk for a bit about what you were actually doing before this. This is your first company that you've started and become the CEO of. You're a geologist by training. What have you been up to the last 10 years before starting Kingfisher?
So I started my career working for several juniors in BC. And then through doing that, I've worked on a lot of projects, probably worked on over 50 projects in BC, a few in Mexico, a bit in the Yukon too. But I started a consultancy back in 2013 and did a lot of work varying from renting out a full camp and, managing full programs, drill programs, generative work. And I enjoyed doing that. I love geology, but I wanted to do something a little more. I wanted to really be the one dictating the pace at which the company moves, what targets we drill. And I've got a lot of drive and motivation to get this done. And I think our track record so far of the money we brought in, we've raised $8 million to date. So we've got the motivation to make this work. And, it's good to be the one in charge to make that happen.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, the reason I wanted to ask you about this, because this was one of the reasons I invested. So often, I guess, you see CEOs or junior companies go into an area or region, whether it's in Canada or abroad, that I guess the management team or even sometimes the technical team are not particularly familiar with. And it's one thing to be perhaps less familiar with the geology, but also a lot of times they have no understanding of what it's going to cost to actually work there and to execute on a program to get things done. And, operating in the mountains in BC can be extremely expensive. And, you mentioned, companies getting rained out and not even getting a drill hole in after, spending however many millions of dollars to get there in the first place. You actually worked for these companies building camps, right? And you owned a camp and you ran the camps and you kind of helped them set up there and costed all this out. And am I right on that?
Yeah, doing everything.
And I just
everything from the geology and planning the geology to the logistics and
I guess I'm trying to iterate, how important that commercial knowledge is to understand how much it's actually going to cost to do things and to budget appropriately. Because you guys have, you've raised $8 million, but you've been operating on pretty much a shoestring budget for the last 2 years. We raised $500,000. The first financing was $900,000 total, and you did the first field program on that, and the rest of the year on that as well too. And I'm not sure where I'm going with this. My point really is that, can you talk to us a little bit about how you're allocating capital and where it's going and what investors can expect out of it?
Yeah, absolutely. So with that in mind, yeah, we're very conscious of the treasury, and we've been good stewards of it so far. We're not wasting money on anything we don't need to. And our exploration plan is very well thought out. We are trying to advance these projects as quickly as possible. We're in a bull market, and I believe it's going to last a long time, but you never know. So we really want to take advantage of this environment right now where we're going to actually get big time share price appreciation for good results. But we're not rushing into things. That's why at XSTL we're taking a bit slower of approach to really be sure of when we actually bring the truth machine out there, we know we're going to hit.
And the truth machine is the drill.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And so with that in mind, we are planning a big program at Gold Range this year. We haven't finalized the budget, but we expect it to be around $2.5 million with a significant regional component, kind of what we did we spent 6 weeks there at Cloud Drifter, maybe only a month of that was at Cloud Drifter this summer. We're going to have 5 months of doing that with a crew 5 times that size across the entire property, plus doing a drill program. And then at XSTL, we haven't finalized that either, but it will probably be in the range of $500,000 with a lot of gravity surveys, which is really the final layer we need at XSTL to really shore up the confidence in those drill targets. And then we actually have a third property we also acquired from Kennerland, Tibbert, it sits in northern BC, and actually it sits on a major structure, a structure that goes all the way up into the Dawson Gold Belt. And it sits where historic since 1873 and currently producing placer district is. So it's already a developed site. There's people out there placer mining all summer.
Are you going to be up there this summer doing regional work as well?
Yeah, but that's our third project. So we're going to do kind of more baseline. We'll do airborne magnetics and some stream sediment sampling.
Okay. So, we talked a lot about, I guess, the work on the ground and your experience with the geology and managing these sort of projects. But, you're not a geologist anymore, or not just a geologist anymore, I should say. You're now the CEO of a company. How are you guys working to position yourself in the market? How are you getting the message out there? Who are you bringing into this deal? Can you give us an overview of the capital markets perspective, from the capital markets perspective of Kingfisher?
Yeah. So what we're branding ourselves as is a company that's exclusively exploring for high-grade mineralization in BC, which is where we're comfortable with. We know it well. And we're looking for deposits that can really give the company some torque if we drill into them. Like high-grade numbers and large land packages that can have multiple discoveries on them and multiple cracks at the can. You always want a stack of targets because they don't always work, and you always want other ones ready to drill. And with that in mind, we've attracted some really, really good funds. We've brought Crescat in for
Crescat Capital down in Denver,
yeah.
Right? That's Tavi.
Tavi Costa, Kevin
Costa,
Smith, and Quentin Henney's pretty fired up on this project. And then Commodity Capital.
And they're out of Europe somewhere, right?
Yep. And then a big family office out of Europe, and then EMX Royalty out of Denver took an equity position, which is a really good vote of confidence to our technical capabilities.
Yeah, I think that's worth elaborating on because they rarely do that, rather, and they have a reputation for driving a tough bargain. So.
They did not get a royalty out of us. No, I've known those guys for quite a long time, and we've always had lots of discussions about geology in this part of the world where they haven't had as much experience, and they really like our vision for these projects. They think they're all really good projects, and they know we have the ability to actually advance them in the right manner. Not wasting money, doing the right things in the right order. And they see the potential to make a big discovery here.
When you're talking to these big funds, Crescat, Commodity Capital, and companies like EMX, what is it that attracts them? What is there a moment in the conversation where their eyes kind of light up and they think oh, this is something we want to be involved in?
Yeah, there's several things. One, I think it's important that we have a young, motivated team. They know we're going to work our butts off. I'm working 6 days a week right now, and have been doing it all along. And we're really passionate, and we care. Nothing else matters in my career other than making a discovery right now. And by virtue of that, if we do, we'll make all our investors plenty of money. But they also like our projects. They see that they're well thought out. We're switched on in that regard. and everybody likes this soil. Normally at a cloud drifter, nobody can look at no intelligent geologist can look at it and not envision there being a big deposit there. You don't get that type of an anomaly without something driving it.
So I got in my notes here that high net worth individuals and institutions make up about 50% of your shareholder base to date. Is that right?
Yeah.
So what is the other 50%?
So just over 20% is by management and directors and advisors, and then 8% is friends and family. All of our families in the company came in quite a bit at the beginning and along the way, and then your group came in for just over 20% as well, with a few other retail investors.
Okay. Huh. Is there an investor out there that you guys haven't attracted that you're trying to attract now that you'd like to be seeing this? Is there any way to round that out that you see, or are you pretty happy with where you are today?
Yeah, I'm pretty happy with what we've done so far, but going forward, we're going to be doing, we will be doing marketing and getting the story out there. And we would like to get more retail buying, obviously, because that's going to drive the stock up. And then eventually it would be nice if we could attract a major miner through an equity position.
Yeah.
And
what are some examples of that happening in BC?
Well, our neighbor, or not neighbor, but geologically our neighbor at Braylorn, Talisker Resources, they've got a Cisco backing their project, a Cisco development. And then other companies such as GT Gold have Newmont in there. Newcrest took over a porphyry deposit. And then within the White Gold District, which is a similar age and similar style of mineralization, I know Kinross and Agnico are involved with big equity positions. So I think there's potential for that.
Yeah, and there's a precedent of this sort of thing.
Oh, exactly. Yeah.
What do they look for? You know, you've got a lot more experience in this, the part of the world than I do. To bring in, a Newmont or a Cisco or whomever, what do you think you need to show them?
It needs to be a project that's big enough to have the potential to host one or several deposits that are actually going to move the needle for that company.
Is that 1 million ounces? Is that 10 million ounces? What are we thinking?
Yeah, closer to the 10 mark.
Yeah. Do you think you guys have that sort of potential there? Is that in the blue sky possibility here?
Yeah, 100%. We see a huge amount of potential here at this project. And even at Tibbert, there's a lot of potential there. It's really early on. And Extol we see as having potential for a significant VMS camp, and it's located at Tidewater. So a good comparison for what we have there, albeit at a much more advanced stage with a lot of success along the way, would be the Arctic belt that Trilogy Metals has. South 32, I believe they put about 150 million US into it. And, we are going to try to target those type of companies to invest in either us or the project going forward, because it really has the ability to be a company maker or have a big impact on a company. A lot of companies, or the original Canadian mining companies, Falconbridge, Noranda, those types, they VMS camps, because they often they don't form as a single VMS most often. They often form as a cluster of deposits, as what you're seeing in the Eskay area now with Eskay mining having a lot of success near to Skeena. So a lot of these companies started out with a couple of deposits and they just keep on finding them. And we've got over 40 targets at that project, and the infrastructure is really good. It's near Kitimat with a $40 billion LNG development project going on, and it's right on a shipping lane to Asia. The Shiner Zone, which we talked about earlier, from the top of it, you're looking right at the Pacific Ocean.
And I mean, that was pretty cool because that was a total grassroots discovery, right? And if I remember the story correctly, it had previously been under glaciation or under ice. And then
permanent snow. It is a high snowfall area, but the property is at low elevation. That zone is at about 1,000 meters. And that area did get worked quite extensively during the 1980s. Falconbridge and Noranda had a joint venture there for several years. But they just did a lot of baseline work. Yeah. And there's also a lot of other work that was unpublished, and we've got all this unpublished data and had everything digitized, and we have all these layers, and we put together a 50 kilometer long property that actually has 70 kilometers of favorable stratigraphy due to folding. So it's a really target rich environment, but it's there are a little more complicated systems than what we're dealing with at Gold Range, so we're taking a little slower approach to that. And I'm not sure if we will drill it right away, and we might try to attract a major into it.
Yeah.
But it's
big potential, but probably big budgets there as well, I would suspect.
Yeah, but we have good optionality on that. There's many things we can do with it going forward. And
So let's talk a bit about that, what you can do, because you kind of mentioned some of the team members you've got, the people you've brought in, and this was a big thing that attracted me, to Kingfisher, the team you were building. Even from day one, you kind of had the right people in mind. Can you talk to us about the expertise you've attracted?
Yeah, sure. So Dave Loretto and I, we're both young guys. We've got some middle-aged. We've got Rick Trotman on the board. He's younger, so he's motivated and driven like us, but he's got a fair bit of capital markets experience.
Yeah, well, he was an analyst or some sort of manager at Resource Capital Funds, one of the biggest mining private equity firms in the world, and I think he was leading a lot of their early stage investments on that.
Yeah, and now he runs Barksdale Resources.
Yeah, which is another Resource Insider deal, I should mention.
Yeah, that's a good project too. Mm-hmm. And then, or several good projects, and then we also have Pino Perrone. He's our corporate secretary and a lawyer. He's been working in the mining industry and the oil and gas industry for a very long time. And Barry McNeil is our CFO, very seasoned, over 30 years in the resource sector. But then on our advisory board, we've got another good mix. We've got some really young people. Sorry, I could save the best for last, but I forgot to mention Gail Febo, our VPX. She's a great friend of mine. We were excellent field buddies. We were kind of the dream team working together. And she's our VPX. She's an incredible geologist, 17 years experience. She did her master's on the KSM deposit, which is the largest undeveloped gold deposit in Canada, maybe number 2 in the world.
And that's in BC as well?
It's in the Golden Triangle, right smack in the Seabridge Gold. And she's also worked at Bruce Jack for Pretium and Galore Creek for Teck and Newmont.
So she understands this geology very well. Is that the takeaway here?
She understands structural geology really well, which is important at both of these projects, and she knows how to get it done in the field. And she also knows what majors want, because she's worked with a lot of these projects that have had continuous site visits or with majors themselves. Mm-hmm. So she's a vital component of the team. Back to our advisory board, we've got a mix of some older people and some younger people. The younger people would be Zach Flood, CEO of Kennerland, and Francis McDonald, VPX there. And then the older people are Jim Miller-Tate, who's the VPX at Imperial Metals, but was actually formerly the Braylorn mine manager for a decade. So he understands these systems really well.
Interesting. I didn't know
He's got
that.
a mining, he takes a mining view to it. And then Greg Liller is also involved. He's chairman of a new company, Sierra Madre Gold and Silver, that's coming out. Extensive experience, over 40 years in the industry from beginning to the end of project life. And then there's a few other people working behind the scenes. So our shell that we've completed the RTO with, the principals there are Hugh Rogers and Alex Langer. They've helped us a lot with the marketing strategy and getting us in front of a lot of different people. And they're big shareholders themselves and good friends, and great to have around. So we've got a really good mix of strong technical background, motivation and drive, and then also a lot of capital markets experience and the ability to raise capital, which is key in this industry.
Yeah, it's so important you have those, I guess, kind of those 3 legs of a tripod, right? You need a great asset, you need a strong team, and you do need the ability to operate effectively in the markets, to get your story out there, to structure companies properly, which is an ame so many great, capable geologists and technical teams often fall down. They don't have that experience. So it's great to see you guys have sort of partnered with people who've made that their expertise.
Yeah, no, it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And things are moving real quick right now.
Do you know what your ticker is going to be?
KFR.
KFR. So Dustin, is there anything that I haven't asked that I should have asked, that we haven't talked about today that I'm missing?
I think you've covered a lot. I guess, yeah, we're going to be putting out a lot of news going forward, doing a lot of exploration on all our properties. I will be trying to make myself as available as possible via webinars, and if people want to contact me, go right ahead. Always available to have a chat and explain our story in more detail. And we're trying to move this forward as quick as possible.
All right. I think we did it.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Thanks for watching. That is Dustin Perry, CEO of Kingfisher Resources. This is a deal that I've been invested in since day one. I'm super excited to see them finally listed. Really, really keen to see the work they're going to be doing over the next year. Check them out. KingfisherResources.com.
Kingfisher Metals. Name change.
KingfisherMetals.com. My apologies.
No problem.
Thanks again, Dustin.
Thank you.
Bye.